So imagine you are Roche and you say, well, there's this Huntington disease. For those that are not familiar, it's a brain disease. It's related to tremor and things related to that. But imagine, you've done a youth development and your press statement says, using a predictive model, Ionis estimated a reduction of 40 to 60% of a certain protein. Is that enough? Hands up, hands down. Is that enough? Yes, no? Samantha? Sorry for, you're right in the center of my screen. Sorry for that. Would you invest in this product?
Depends.
Yeah, it always depends. But your gut feeling.
Well, I would say yes.
Sophia is saying yes. Anyone thumbs down? Like, no.
I would wait for more data.
Okay, so that's the conservative entrepreneur. So I would say no, I would not invest. Why? Because HTA, who is the one that will give you access to the healthcare system, will say, well, this is not enough. This is not convincing. Let me share with you a story. Every diabetes drug requires proof that it improves cardiovascular outcomes. It's not enough showing that you reduce blood sugar. So here they are reducing a protein. Is it enough showing that the protein is reduced to see that the patient is improving? No. And there's the Sarepta. Ionis is one company, and Sarepta is a very similar company working in Duchenne. They did show that they increased the dystrophin levels, but oh, surprise, surprise, the functional level of the patients did not improve. So we, as evaluators, don't like what we call proxies. We don't like biomarkers. We want functional outcomes. Okay, let's make it a bit more difficult. So this is a receptor that is in the brain. It's about, we all have it, and it's about satiety, and about having, when this receptor is triggered, kind of the brain says, I've had enough food, okay? And there are some people that don't have it. And there is a trial, and I see Mercedes that has joined, there's a trial that is one of the best trials I've ever seen, because it shows a lot of things. It shows a correlation. It shows how suppressing this receptor or activating this receptor works. The patients do lose weight, but is that enough? The primary outcome is weight loss. Is that enough? Alfonso.
Oh, I was trying to look at the data. It depends. That's enough in terms of, does it actually approach the patient to the control values? Or is it just like a 10% reduction over 100 kilos? So it's not going to do like a functional effect.
That's one answer. That's one answer. But to keep it relatively short and to make sure that we have time for the discussion, I will cut it short and say, well, for hard-nosed people like me, this is not enough. Weight is not a problem. So what's the problem with weight? It's, yeah, clothes have to be bigger, your silhouette is bigger, but the problem is not weight. in itself. The problem is the functional consequences of weight, and that may be hypertension, that may be diabetes, that may be musculoskeletal problems, that may be that may be cancer, that may be other things. So weight in itself is not a problem. And what I'm trying to show you here is that when this trial comes to an evaluator, she may say, well, what's in it for me? Do I have a clear link between the protein, the weight, and the whatever with what matters to me, which is the functionality? If patients are happier or less happy, whether I can cure or not cure the disease. So we have a lot of things related to outcomes that are important and relevant when we design a trial. Then there's an issue on the positioning. So imagine I am developing an antibiotic, okay? And it's for urinary tract infections. And my question would be, yeah, who will use it? And what is your answer? Urinary tract infections? So how can I use it? Who will mainly use an antibiotic for urinary tract infections? Well, essentially, all women will have an infection during the urinary tract infection, at least one infection in their lives. And the question is, should this new antibiotic be first line? Should it be for everyone? Should it be just for some people, just for some other people, just for the elderly woman, just for the pediatric population? Well, we don't know. And if I had to price it at 12 euros, would it be acceptable? The current treatment is 1.8 euros. Is it acceptable? Mikel or Michelangelo?
Sorry, I think that the price is limited and it could be okay, no?
So it's 1.8 versus 12.
Well, if the advantage of this new one is clear, the price could be affordable, no?
Okay, so what we do is using health economics on trying to understand the whole disease. So what are we winning with this approach? And what we do is we do models, mathematical models, to try to show where you can win and where you lose. And for example, what we showed here is that, well, essentially women, and I'm talking about women because it's majoritarily women that have this disease, because women are treated with this antibiotic, but some may have resistance, and a lot of these women will be treated with inappropriate treatments. Inappropriate because they have huge level of resistance or moderately high levels of resistance, and that may lead to secondary infections, even to kidney infections, and that is way more expensive. So there is a potential that an apparently simple infection converts into a very significant problem. And what at the end we get with the conclusion is that, well, in second line, not in first line, in second line, this is a super efficient treatment. Whether that is enough for your business plan is another story. But in second line, 12 euros would be perfectly justifiable. What do? We do the costing, we do the prevalence of the resistance, we do the analysis of the potential consequences of that resistance and so on. And we get to the conclusion that, yeah, well, with the different numbers, 12 euros would be justifiable. So we move from the 1.8 to the 12 euros. And then we also explain that given the resistance problem that we have, just maybe spending slightly more in this disease will be important to prevent resistance to spread into the community. Okay. Third example, imagine Parkinson's disease. Okay. And we've invented a small device that when you have this on-off problem in Parkinson is, for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter, you get blocked. You cannot move when you have Parkinson's disease. And that's an episode that appears relatively random, and it lasts between half an hour and 1 hour. So patients are just blocked. They cannot move, okay? And this is a device that administers a drug that would prevent to keep going. Would you pay for it? Kike, now you're in the center of my screen.
Well, it depends on the price.
Okay, let me put it another way. Do you think it's a good idea?
It depends on the. So if the patient will self-administer,
he cannot move.
Who will press then?
That's the question.
But I don't know then. I don't think so.
So how old is a Parkinson patient?
Yes, normally old.
Okay. Will grandpa or grandma be able to push the button?
No.
Okay. Will they be at home when they have this problem?
Probably.
So we are assuming this is a device that will be administered at home.
Mm-hmm.
Can this be done? Can we assume that the healthcare system will be paying for a device that will be administered by a non-trained personnel with a significant drug on this? Does this work? Does this fit with the idea that the healthcare system has on how things have to be done? Or is this just something that needs to be used in the hospital? Well, if it was to be used in the hospital, what's the benefit of having this device when I can do it with a syringe and it costs me peanuts? So we need to think on all these things when we design our innovations, because maybe it's a super good technology, but it doesn't fit into the market. Okay, let me show you some more examples. Imagine you have an app that helps you to predict whether you need to go to the emergency room, you need to call the doctor, or something else. Okay, and then what the evaluation standard says, you have to look at efficacy, effectiveness, price, willingness to pay, and market. Okay, and then does this app help? Well, there is efficacy. Okay, let's assume there's efficacy. Effectiveness, okay, let's assume we can prove there will be effectiveness. Let's assume that the app is cheap enough, let's say €5, so that people can really use it. So they introduce, I have a temperature, I have cough, and I have, I don't know, chest pain. Okay, it's likely that you have a pneumonia. So you need to go to the emergency room. Is there willingness to pay? Yes, of course, because apparently the individuals and some people in the healthcare system may be willing to pay for that to avoid people staying at home for too long or going to the emergency room for nonsense things. But is there a market for this? Well, my idea is no. Why not? Who has called 061 in the last 12 months? A lot of people, a lot of us. Why? Well, the healthcare system has already put that technology in our hands. And what we do is the healthcare system already provides this solution. You ring 061 and they tell you, yes, you need to go to the emergency room. So does the market, even if they would have a willingness to pay, want to pay for this for a second time? Well, probably not. Okay, so you need to think whether there is or there isn't a market. Last example. Well, imagine you design a device to do lung biopsies. Okay, and a lung biopsy is relatively simple, or could be relatively simple. And again, the same set of questions. The thing is it efficacious? Yes. The effectiveness is there? Yes. Is the price appropriate? Probably yes. Is there willingness to pay? Well, we don't know. The problem here, the very big problem being, is that, okay, this is for primary healthcare. Okay, imagine you can do this biopsy in primary healthcare. Who will pay for it? How does the GP get paid for this intervention? There's no way. So they will only see it as a cost, and there's no way they will get reimbursed for this. The only way this device can be reimbursed is if it is in a hospital. Therefore, it has to be only in severe patients, which kind of changes the size of your market and changes the potential of this device to be used. So you have to be extremely careful in thinking at the same time in where to put it, how to put it, how to price it, and a lot of different things. Is that clear enough?
Sorry, I did not understand why it can only be reimbursed if it's in a hospital.
Because this type of devices in certain markets, and this is especially for the French market, the German market, Austria, and some other markets, there's no way the GP can get reimbursed for this procedure.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, you have to have that into account. It will be exactly the same for an electronic, an app. So a GP could prescribe an app, but there's no way he or she gets reimbursed for it. So it's a kind of a counterintuitive thing. So what is health economics? Health economics is about incorporating economics into healthcare thinking. It can be a lot of things, but essentially we do focus on how to rationalize resources, how to design priority setting policies, and deciding who pays for what and where the money comes from. Part of the health economics story is about linking between health and productivity, but that today we'll leave it aside. So we know that if you don't have health, you cannot produce, so you need to provide health so that society flourishes. And very important, why do we have healthcare services? Well, we need to have healthcare services so that the society is stable, to provide financial protection. So imagine I don't want to put you on the spot, imagine I have a serious condition. It is very likely that my economy is jeopardized by that serious condition. So a healthcare service and an insurance service protects me from that financial risk. And also, it has to be responsive. And the story is that how do we get to this with a limited amount of money? We allocate resources via the efficiency, we look for the quality, and then we have to have transparency. HTA looks after this, and the objective is this other thing. So what we need to do is to make sure that we spend the money where we can get most of the benefit. We don't want to misuse our resources. Very rapidly, imagine you have these three archetypes. You have John, who is retired, who has a major depression, Rachel, postpartum depression, and Maria and Emmanuel, who have phobia to flying. You are the Minister of Health, or Minister he or she of Health. Who would you treat?
Rachel.
Anyone else? Who would not treat Rachel? Can you put your hands up, your virtual hands up? No one? Okay, Roger, why would you not treat Rachel?
I would treat John, but I already been in your speech, so
Okay.
the answer.
Okay, so anyone who has not heard the story before would treat Rachel. And the story is that no healthcare system in the world would treat Rachel as first priority. All the healthcare services would treat John. Why? He is the one that is more at need. The disease severity of a major depression is bigger than postpartum depression. And even with that, imagine that then, oops, there's a typo. So here it should say 2,600. I thought I had corrected this. So imagine you have not 3,600, but 2,600 euros. How would you decide who to treat? You cannot treat John, you can treat Rachel, and you cannot treat both Rachel and Sarah or Emmanuel. Well, essentially what we do is try to understand, well, one thing we do, okay, just give me the treatment of John for 3,000, for 260, 2.6 thousand euros. So give me a discount, that's one way. And the other is saying, well, what do I get if I treat John? And what do I get if I treat Rachel? So where is my money better spent? Because if I treat Rachel, but the benefit is very limited, maybe I'd rather treat someone else. And that's how I calculate the efficiency. Okay, so here's my 2,600, sorry. So what I'm trying to get at is that the healthcare service around the world, it's not only Spain or Catalonia or Barcelona or San Juan de Déu, they always look at the three main principles: efficacy, safety, and cost. And that is how I decide whether I want to buy a technology. I look at its efficiency, then I look whether it's safe or not, and then I look at its cost with two dimensions. One dimension is, can I afford it? Who wants a Lamborghini? Maybe it's a fantastic car, but I cannot pay for it, so I cannot have it. And second, does it deliver what I want? I live in a mountain and I have a Lamborghini. Is it a good buy? Well, maybe not, okay, because I will spend more money in reparations than in driving it. And very important, government priorities are also important, are also something that you should be aware of. I'll skip this for the sake of time. And yeah, here it's efficacy, safety, and cost. And essentially, you have to find the appropriate endpoints and be very clear that HTA people does not look at regulatory things. They look at the impact on population. So it's not whether it's safe and efficacious, which is what the FDA, the EMA looks at, but rather whether it's good enough for the population. And that's a complete different set of thinking. And that's how different organizations around the world look at it. They all have all these three main principles. You'll have the slides, you can look at it. I didn't even pretend to go through all these details, but you see here a set of criteria which are used in different ways by different organizations. And that's how the system prioritizes or deprioritizes certain technologies. For example, the UK, they have NICE, and they make it very clear. If a certain measure is the cost per quality, I won't go into that, is above a certain threshold, which is this part here, they say, well, probably not. It's too expensive. We don't get enough out of our money. But if it's in the lower bar, yeah, probably we get enough out of it. Then, for example, Italy, in the last couple of years, they have said, well, if it's a true innovation and it's a disruptive innovation, we have special money for this. So how do I design my trial, my development, so that I hit that special condition of being really innovative? There are a set of conditions that you need to meet. And for example, in France, you have to have two criteria. Well, the disease you're tackling has to be important. The medical need is very important, but then the difference you're making with the standard of care has also to be very important. So you need to balance certain things. And the same would apply to many other different healthcare systems. So I'll skip this. At the end of the day, healthcare system, it's always about equity. It's always about making sure that everyone gets its fair share. And that's an important thing. I'll skip this. This is about how to use health economics. Well, just 1 second. Imagine you have intervention A, which gets you a good number of health gain, compared to intervention D, which does not get you that much. But if you compare the efficiency rates, well, maybe there are certain ways where you can get more a combination. Well, essentially what we do is we compare how the different technologies perform, and we're able to compare them. One last word about pricing. Pricing is very important. It's super important, in fact. Who knows this? Wegovy. Wegovy. And what about if I say Ozempic? Ozempic, everyone knows. How much is Ozempic? Sake of time, it's 1,500 milkini a year. Okay, is it a good price? It's a super good price. But why did they get to this price? Well, they were patient enough so that they did not lower the price in their previous indication. Remember, this is a diabetes drug. And they were happy for more than 10 years to be in a 5% market share because their price was super high. There's a relationship between price and volume. Forxiga, which is a very similar drug, not in the mechanism of action, not in the potency and blah, 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 but it's also a diabetes drug and also gets weight loss. But Forxiga is also being used in heart failure, huge population. It's also being used in kidney failure, huge population. So because the volume is so huge, the price went down, 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 down. And now that we could have the obesity indication, now the price is tiny. So they have to understand, well, how do the price goes up? Well, this will never happen. The price of Forxiga is roughly 30 euros a month, whereas so 300 a year, round numbers, whereas Wegovy Ozempic is 1,500. So who is super rich? Novo Nordisk or AstraZeneca? Novo Nordisk. Why? They did their pricing strategy right, and they got it very right. What is this? This is a device to preserve organs for transplantation. You get it in Sevilla and you transplant it in Barcelona. You get it in Moscow and you transplant it in Milan. Okay, and you have to transport it. And this was a super high-tech device, roughly 2,000 the device. Why did it not fly? Well, because this does roughly the same, and it costs 10 euros at Carrefour. Okay, so pricing and outcomes is very important. Last one. Okay, we have Humira. Humira is the best-selling drug in the world ever. 16 billion a year. Well, the price suddenly went down from 1,800 a year, sorry, 1,800 a month to 90 euros a month. Why? There was a biosimilar, there was a competitor. So we need to look where the competitors come from and whether they can blow our market. So about HTA is not only about the product, which is very important. Of course, it has to be efficacious, it has to be safe, it has to be appropriately priced, but it's also about a set of different things that you need to bear in mind when you design it, because maybe just doing some tweaks here may help you improve your design. And that's why you need to incorporate all this thinking at the very first day when you start your development. And that's all. Open for questions. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Oriol. You can use the chat, but I know I think that Oriol will be happier if we just have the microphone open. So please feel free to ask any question you may have.
Hi, Oriol.
Hi, hello, Sofia.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You were talking about efficacy, safety, and cost, no? And in the case of pediatrics, no, and rare diseases, where the outcomes, no, are so important because of problems that are not solved during their childhood, they go through the adulthood. How do you think that the projects that are working on rare diseases, no, should start analyzing the cost efficacy? No, how can they start drafting some numbers on what should be the cost of their treatments?
Yeah, very good question, Sofia. So it is true that in rare diseases, one of the main problems. So we have a lot of problems with rare diseases. First, a lot of the outcomes are uncertain. So you've done a trial, you've done a development, and maybe you don't know for how long the effect will last, but you have to. So that's why we model things. We say, well, so if things go right, maybe we can have this effect for, let's say, 10 years. And then in a lot of occasions, the alternative is nothing. So it's cost zero. So the incremental cost is very huge. So that's why you would need to expect that the incremental gain in terms of health has also to be very high. If those two are met, then probably you can have a price that is big enough to sustain your market, because that's the other part. Because if, okay, you have a small benefit and a small cost, but then because it's such a small market, it doesn't pay off. So it has to be balanced. And what we do is try to model this and try to show that these things prove right. Let me maybe explain it with 2 or 3 examples. Hemophilia gene therapy, okay? Hemophilia, you can, well, there are some gene therapies that have been approved, showing that, well, patients do not have bleeds. Okay, that's good enough. And what we know is that the current cost roughly of an hemophilia patient is 300,000 per patient per year. So, okay, if I can forecast that for 5 years and the trials are at least 5 years, so that's 1.5 million. And that's the price of the gene therapy, full stop. So, and that is exactly the same with Sarepta and the Duchenne therapy. And it's exactly the same with other gene therapies. So there's a combination of expected benefits and current costs, and how to health economics also deals on how to pay for things. So do we need to pay day 1? Do we need to pay day 1, day 3, day 7, day 10? Do we need to pay day 1? And then depending on the effect, we pay half of it. So that's what we try to balance to de-risk the payer. And that's an important part of the equation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Oriol. We have a question in the chat. So it's in which moment in the development of a product would you think is the best and realistic moment to do the HTA?
So if you are in this call and you have not thought about it, let me challenge you, you're already late. So again, with an example, I was asked a couple of years ago to go and explain what HTA is about at the big meeting of one of the largest pharma companies in the world. Why? They thought they needed to have, at the very beginning of any project, to evaluate the HTA and the health economics. And this pharma company, they do it at the development phase. If the product scales to a preclinical phase, they do it again. Then as they walk into human phase, they do it again. Then in phase 2, they do it again. And then in phase 3, they do it again. And obviously the intensity and the kind of things you do at every stage is slightly different. But what I would say is, do I have clear who my payer would be, whether there is or there isn't willingness to pay? Do I have an idea where I want to sell this product? Many of you will say, well, I will license this product to a pharmaceutical company. Well, will this pharma company, how do you think the pharma company would like it better? If you say, well, this is a product for, I don't know, diabetes, or this is a product for type 1 diabetes, patients that are on insulin pumps and are not well functioning, because this is the segment, this is my price comparator, and this is how I can go on top of my competitor. My competitor is 0.2 euros, and I think I can go at 1 euro because this, and this. And I've designed all my trials based on this hypothesis, and I've ticked everything. So the more information you have, the more refined your trial design can be. Your strategy is more geared towards obtaining the result.
Thank you, Oriol. Anyone else has any question? Okay, so Oriol, would you like to finish this presentation with some final idea or something just before we?
No, so maybe what I would say is that even if you think it is very complex, it is not. And what I would recommend is that you think about these things, you try to incorporate it in your discussions. If you don't have a clear view, well, maybe there's someone out there that can help you. But it's important that you try to incorporate in your debate this on a daily basis, because at the end of the line of the development, there is always someone that has to buy your product. And if you've got that who wrong, then maybe you have a big problem. So it's not only about transfecting cells, it's not only about achieving an AUC, it's not only about all these things. It's also, well, maybe it doesn't really even matter because I've done the wrong development. And I can tell you so many examples. I've shown you all the examples you've seen, all are real examples. Some haven't done well, some have been able to pivot and change and make a story, but some others just were in the middle of nowhere. So just please have this into your thought.
Thank you very much, Oriol, for this great presentation, and of course to all the attendees that have joined us today. And we are looking forward to meeting you really soon again in our next training capsule, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.